The Cth Dominion had reigned supreme across the galaxy for centuries. Their rigid belief system was as old as their empire, rooted in the absolute conviction that females were inherently weaker and less valuable than their male counterparts. The Cth didn't just believe in gender inequality, they lived and breathed it. Across the countless worlds they had conquered, this belief permeated their societies, with females relegated to subservient roles, never considered a threat, and certainly never allowed in any position of power. To them, this ideology was one of their strengths, a reason they had dominated so many other species. Civilizations that allowed females to hold positions of authority or to fight in wars were, in the Cth's eyes, foolish and destined for failure. They couldn't have been more wrong, but they wouldn't realize that until it was too late. Emily Carter was just another name to them. Another body, another prisoner of war. She had been flying her fighter alongside the human fleet during the skirmish near the planet Axelon when her ship had been hit. The Cth had quickly moved in to capture her, not out of any specific desire to imprison her, but because she was a convenient target, a spoil of war to be taken. When they saw she was female, they didn't even bother to assign her to one of their higher security cells. In their eyes, a female human pilot held no value, no threat. Emily was taken to one of the Cth's notorious detention centers. It was a massive facility built to house the most dangerous captives, though it seemed clear the Cth didn't see Emily as one of them. The guards barely glanced at her as they threw her into a small, barren cell, the door clanging shut behind her. Her surroundings were bleak, cold metal walls, dim lighting, and the constant distant hum of alien machinery. The cell wasn't designed to hold a soldier, just a woman who, in their eyes, was nothing but a weak, unimportant prisoner. What the Cth didn't know, what they could never have anticipated, was how wrong they were. Emily wasn't just any pilot. She had trained for years, her mind and body sharpened to handle some of the toughest situations the galaxy could throw at her. They didn't know that underestimating her would be their undoing. But even more important than her skill was the fact that humanity didn't abandon its own. Not for a moment. Far away, in the Human Command Center, the news of Emily's capture had reached her superiors. They knew what kind of soldier they had lost, and they knew that Emily was no ordinary prisoner of war. Within hours of her capture, a message was sent to the Cth High Command. It was simple, direct, and deadly serious. Do not touch our female alien. The warning was more than just a command, it was a statement of human resolve, a promise that the Cth had no idea they would come to regret ignoring. When the message reached the Cth leaders, they couldn't help but laugh. To them, it was absurd. A warning about a female prisoner? They had never heard of anything so ridiculous. In their arrogance, they believed that the humans were overreacting, that there was no need to be concerned about such a trivial matter. They dismissed the message, assuming it was an empty threat made by a species they already viewed as beneath them. Emily, however, was anything but trivial. From the moment she was thrown into that cold, desolate cell, her mind had been working. She knew she couldn't count on her captors to treat her fairly, and she certainly couldn't expect them to show her any respect. But that wasn't what she needed. She needed time. Time to observe, to plan, and to wait for the right moment to act. The Cth Detention Center was a maze of corridors and cells, each more heavily guarded than the last. But Emily quickly noticed something important. The guards didn't pay much attention to her. They didn't see her as a threat, and that was their first mistake. As they patrolled the halls, their movements became predictable. Their routines, once observed closely, were repetitive, and Emily was nothing if not observant. She began gathering what little information she could, silently and discreetly. She watched the guards, noted the timing of their shifts, and took in the layout of the detention center every time they moved her for questioning. Her captors were arrogant, overconfident in their belief that she posed no risk. They underestimated her in every way, but that was something she could use to her advantage. Emily had faced worse odds before. As a pilot, she had been trained to stay calm under pressure, to think quickly and act decisively. But here, it wasn't about speed, it was about patience. She knew the humans wouldn't leave her behind. She knew they were coming for her. The Cth might have been blind to her value, but humanity understood all too well the kind of person they had captured. Still, she couldn't just wait for them to arrive. She had to be ready. Every day that passed, Emily built on the quiet rebellion she had begun within herself. She refused to give the Cth any satisfaction in breaking her spirit. She refused to let them see her fear or her frustration. Instead, she used every moment of solitude to strengthen her resolve. The Cth may have believed they had captured a weak and insignificant prisoner, but Emily knew the truth. She was no ordinary pilot, and this was no ordinary capture. Soon, the Cth would learn that their ignorance and arrogance were fatal flaws. They had ignored the human fleet's warning, thinking it laughable. But the humans didn't make idle threats. They had underestimated the wrong person, and the price for that mistake would be far higher than they could imagine. The Cth thought Emily was just another prisoner, but they were wrong. She wasn't just a pilot. She was a symbol of humanity's strength, resilience, and defiance. And when the time came, they would learn just how dangerous it was to underestimate a human, especially a woman like Emily Carter. Humanity had learned long ago that brute force wasn't always the answer. In a galaxy filled with powerful empires and technologically advanced species, the human race had adapted their military strategies in ways that no one expected. It wasn't about having the biggest fleet or the most powerful weapons, it was about precision, stealth, and knowing when to strike. This approach had earned humanity a reputation for unpredictability and efficiency, and now, as they faced the challenge of retrieving Emily Carter, these traits would be put to the ultimate test. Captain Alexander Reed stood at the helm of a small but elite task force, handpicked for their skill in infiltration and guerrilla warfare. The mission was clear: retrieve Emily at all costs. Failure wasn't an option. Reed and his team knew the Cth's arrogance all too well. The Cth believed themselves invincible, their society so rooted in gender superiority that they couldn't fathom the possibility that one human female could be of any significance. That overconfidence would be their undoing. Emily's capture hadn't gone unnoticed. The moment her signal had gone dark, the human fleet had swung into action, mobilizing faster than the Cth could have anticipated. But they didn't send an armada. That wasn't how humans fought, not anymore. They had evolved past massive displays of force. Instead, they relied on stealth technology, advanced AI, and guerrilla tactics that allowed them to slip past even the most advanced alien defenses undetected. The Cth, proud and powerful as they were, wouldn't see the humans coming. Reed's task force wasn't just there to rescue a pilot. Emily held information, crucial intelligence that could tip the balance of power in the war. This wasn't just about saving a life. It was about protecting what Emily knew. The Cth had captured her without realizing the value of their prisoner. But the human command knew. They understood that Emily's knowledge, combined with her experience as a pilot, was vital to the survival of the human fleet. This mission was more than just a rescue. It was about ensuring humanity's future in a galaxy that had underestimated them for too long. The task force began its journey into Cth space under the cover of the most advanced cloaking devices humanity had ever developed. The ships were small, nimble, and nearly invisible to the Cth's sensors. As they navigated the vast expanse of Cth-controlled territory, they moved like shadows, slipping past patrols and defense systems with ease. It was a silent invasion, one that the Cth wouldn't even realize was happening until it was too late. Reed's team wasn't just relying on technology. Each member of the task force had been trained in guerrilla warfare tactics that made them deadly in even the most hostile environments. They didn't need large numbers to succeed. What they needed was precision, and that's what they brought. Every move was calculated, every decision made with the understanding that they couldn't afford to make mistakes. The Cth wouldn't see them coming, but when they did, they'd realize too late just how dangerous humans could be. While the task force positioned itself around the Cth detention center, Emily was already preparing for her own escape. Inside the prison, she had quickly gained the trust of her fellow captives. There were prisoners from various species, all of whom had been oppressed by the Cth, and many of them had given up hope. But Emily had not. Her training as a pilot had taught her how to remain calm in the face of adversity, how to assess situations and find solutions. And now, in the heart of enemy territory, she was putting that training to use. Emily had observed the guards closely, memorizing their routines and the layout of the facility. She knew the Cth didn't take her seriously, and that was their mistake. Her intelligence and leadership had quickly become apparent to the other captives, who began to look to her for guidance. Emily wasn't just planning her own escape, she was organizing a full-scale rebellion from within the prison. The Cth might have captured her, but they hadn't broken her spirit. In fact, their dismissal of her as a threat only made her more determined to prove them wrong. Reed and his team were unaware of the uprising brewing within the detention center, but it didn't matter. They had their own plan, and it was already in motion. The small human ships had positioned themselves perfectly, surrounding the facility with deadly precision. They were waiting for the right moment to strike, knowing that their success depended on timing and stealth. One wrong move, one premature attack, and the mission could be compromised. But humans were patient. They had learned to bide their time, to wait for the perfect opportunity. And when it came, they would strike with the full force of their tactical genius. The Cth, in their arrogance, believed they were untouchable. They believed that a single human, especially a woman, posed no threat to their empire. But they were about to learn just how wrong they were. As Emily continued to organize the prisoners, Reed and his team prepared for the final phase of the mission. They had already infiltrated the outer perimeter, silently taking out Cth guards without raising any alarms. Their technology allowed them to remain undetected, their presence invisible to the Cth's systems. The task force was moving closer, inching towards the detention center's core, where Emily was being held. The tension was palpable, but the humans remained calm, their focus unwavering. The Cth still had no idea what was about to hit them. They had dismissed the humans as inferior, assuming their technology and numbers would protect them from any threat. But the humans had something far more powerful than numbers or technology. They had loyalty, determination, and the element of surprise. And most importantly, they had Emily Carter, a woman who was about to show the galaxy that humanity's strength came in forms that the Cth could never have predicted. The rescue was imminent. The Cth had ignored the warning, and now they would pay the price. Reed's task force was ready, and Emily was prepared. The Cth believed they were in control, but the humans were about to flip the balance of power in their favor. It was only a matter of time before the galaxy learned what happened when humanity was underestimated. Emily Carter had never been one to wait for rescue. While she knew her comrades in the human fleet were coming, she also understood that the Cth would never suspect her of being capable of initiating her own breakout. That arrogance would be their downfall. The Cth guards, preoccupied with maintaining control over their more violent prisoners, had overlooked her completely. This was her advantage, one she would not waste. The detention center was vast, filled with prisoners of all shapes and sizes from dozens of subjugated species, most of whom had given up any hope of freedom. The Cth's iron grip on their minds and spirits had held for so long that many had simply accepted their fate. But Emily, even in the cold, metal confines of the cell, had remained defiant. She hadn't been broken, and that resilience had not gone unnoticed. She had quietly formed alliances, gaining the trust of those who still had a spark of rebellion left in them. These prisoners, alien and human alike, were drawn to Emily's quiet confidence, sensing that she was different. In the days leading up to the breakout, she'd gathered scraps, wires, broken devices, and anything that could be repurposed. Her mind was constantly at work, analyzing the Cth's weaknesses, both in their systems and in their psyche. She saw how they moved, their routines, and their patterns, and she realized they could be beaten from within. When the time came, it wasn't just about escaping, it was about doing so in a way that would destabilize the entire Cth operation. Emily had planned it all. Using the scraps she had collected, she managed to disable key security systems within the prison, creating confusion among the guards. The Cth, arrogant as ever, had never expected such defiance from a prisoner they deemed insignificant. As alarms blared and lights flickered, chaos erupted within the detention center. At the same time, outside the prison walls, Captain Reed and his task force were executing their assault with precision. The humans had timed their infiltration perfectly, unaware that Emily had already sparked a rebellion inside. The Cth, overwhelmed by the sudden attack both within and without, scrambled to maintain control. The confusion played to the humans' advantage. Inside the prison, Emily took charge. She led her fellow captives through the halls, bypassing the remaining guards with tactics that revealed her military training. Her leadership was undeniable. Even the most jaded of prisoners, those who had resigned themselves to a life of captivity, found themselves rallying behind her. They saw in her not just a fellow prisoner, but a symbol of defiance against the Cth's tyranny. Emily's strength wasn't just in her physical abilities. It was in her mind, her ability to strategize under pressure, and her refusal to be broken. This inspired those around her. The prisoners, many of whom had been distrustful of humans, now saw Emily as their beacon of hope. She led them not through brute force, but through cunning and courage. When the Cth guards tried to contain the uprising, they found themselves outmaneuvered, their complacency and arrogance now their greatest weakness. Meanwhile, Reed's task force moved with surgical precision. They breached the outer defenses of the prison, taking down Cth forces with efficiency and stealth. Their mission was clear: extract Emily and get out. But when they entered the prison's core, they found that Emily had already initiated her own escape. She was no longer just a prisoner waiting to be saved, she was the leader of a full-blown insurrection. Reed's team was impressed by the scene unfolding before them. Emily had taken control of the situation, leading the prisoners through the maze of the facility with the confidence of someone who had been in command her whole life. It was clear that she was no ordinary pilot. The task force shifted its focus, moving to support Emily's efforts rather than simply extracting her. Together, they pushed through the remaining Cth forces, clearing a path to freedom. As the prisoners fled the detention center, news of the breakout spread like wildfire across the Cth Dominion. The Cth had always ruled with an iron fist, suppressing any hint of rebellion through fear and brute force. But Emily's defiance had shown that the Cth were not invincible. The warning from the human fleet, which had once been scoffed at, now carried a new weight. The Cth had ignored the humans' warning, and now they were paying the price. Across the galaxy, other oppressed species took note. Emily's escape became a symbol of hope, her defiance a rallying cry for those who had lived under the Cth's oppressive regime for far too long. What began as a single prison uprising soon spiraled into a full-scale rebellion. Species that had once bowed to the Cth's authority were rising up, inspired by the human warning and Emily's actions. The Cth had underestimated humanity, and now they were facing the consequences. Emily's escape was no longer just about her own survival. It had become the catalyst for a galaxy-wide movement. Word of the rebellion spread quickly, and soon, systems that had been loyal to the Cth for centuries were turning against them. The Cth's control, once absolute, was now crumbling, weakened by the spark of defiance that Emily had ignited. The galaxy had always seen humans as unpredictable, but this was something different. Humanity wasn't just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for freedom, for justice, and for the right to stand against oppression. And Emily Carter had become the embodiment of that fight. As the Cth scrambled to maintain their power, they realized too late that their arrogance had blinded them. They had captured a human, a woman they believed to be insignificant. But that human had proven them wrong in ways they could never have anticipated. Emily's leadership had turned the tide, and now, the galaxy was rising against the Cth in a way that no one had ever seen before. The rebellion had begun, and there was no turning back. Emily's escape had set off a chain of events that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Cth had underestimated her, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. The galaxy was about to learn that when humanity gave a warning, it wasn't just words, it was a promise. And that promise had sparked a revolution. As the dust of rebellion settled and the Cth forces scrambled to regain their footing, a deeper truth behind the human fleet's warning began to unfold. The phrase, "Do not touch our female alien," had resonated throughout the Cth Dominion, echoing with a power they had not fully grasped. The Cth, in their arrogance, had assumed it was merely a statement of defiance, a show of human loyalty that they could easily dismiss. But in reality it was far more than that, it was a trigger. The human fleet had been working on a project for years, one so secretive that even most within the fleet didn't fully understand its scope. The project, codenamed Sentinel, was a defense mechanism unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Designed to protect key human assets, the system was built to respond with overwhelming force when those assets were threatened. It had been quietly deployed across multiple strategic locations, ready to activate at a moment's notice. And now, with Emily at the heart of the Cth's assault, Sentinel was about to be unleashed. The Cth, desperate to reassert their dominance, launched one final, massive assault. Their remaining forces converged on the human fleet, hoping to crush the resistance in a single, decisive blow. They had underestimated humanity before, and they were prepared to use every weapon in their arsenal to correct that mistake. But what they didn't know was that the warning wasn't just words, it was a signal. A signal that had been waiting for this very moment. As the Cth fleet closed in, a sudden and overwhelming power surged through the human fleet. Sentinel had activated. It was an AI-driven system capable of analyzing and responding to threats in real time, and its sole purpose was to defend against overwhelming odds. What the Cth had expected to be a vulnerable fleet was now an impenetrable wall of energy and firepower, controlled by a defense system that could predict and counter every one of their moves. The Cth's warships were no match for the sheer efficiency of Sentinel. One by one, their vessels were obliterated, caught in the relentless precision of the human system. The Cth commanders, who had once been so confident, were now in a state of disbelief. They had never encountered anything like this. Sentinel wasn't just a defense mechanism, it was a force of nature, an unstoppable power that decimated the Cth armada with ease. Their fleet, once feared across the galaxy, was reduced to wreckage, floating aimlessly in the void. But the Sentinel system wasn't just about destruction. It was designed to protect, and in that moment, it became clear that humanity's strength wasn't just in their technology. It was in their unwavering commitment to their own. The Sentinel project had been built on the foundation of human loyalty, on the belief that no matter how small or insignificant a human life might seem to others, it was worth defending with everything they had. And now, that belief was manifesting in the devastation of the Cth forces. Emily, at the center of it all, was not just a bystander. As the Cth's forces crumbled, she led the final charge. Her escape and the rebellion she had sparked had weakened the Cth's grip on the galaxy, but now she would deliver the final blow. With the human fleet backing her, and the Sentinel system securing their victory, Emily pushed forward, leading a coalition of human and alien forces in a coordinated assault on the last remnants of the Cth resistance. The Cth, once the supreme rulers of countless worlds, were now nothing more than a fragmented, disorganized group of survivors. Their dominance had been shattered, their arrogance exposed. Emily's leadership in this final battle wasn't just about victory, it was about sending a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity wasn't to be underestimated. The Cth had captured her, believing her to be insignificant, but now she stood as a symbol of defiance and strength, leading the very forces that would dismantle the Cth Dominion for good. The Cth's downfall wasn't just military, it was symbolic. For too long, they had ruled with the belief that strength came from oppression and dominance. But Emily and the human fleet had shown that true strength came from unity, resilience, and the ability to inspire others to fight for their freedom. As the Cth's last strongholds fell, Emily's role in the rebellion was solidified. She wasn't just a survivor, she was a leader, a liberator who had sparked a revolution that would change the course of galactic history. In the aftermath, the galaxy was forever altered. The Cth Dominion, which had once seemed unassailable, had crumbled under the weight of their own arrogance. And at the heart of it all was Emily Carter, the pilot they had deemed unworthy of their attention. Now, her name was spoken in awe across countless worlds, her actions a testament to the power of human resilience and loyalty. The phrase, "Do not touch our female alien," had taken on a new meaning. It was no longer just a warning, it had become a symbol of the revolution. Across the galaxy, oppressed species that had once feared the Cth were now rising up, inspired by the humans' actions and the strength of their conviction. Humanity had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they would not abandon their own. And more importantly, they would fight not just for themselves, but for anyone who stood against tyranny. Emily's victory wasn't just military, it was ideological. The galaxy had witnessed the fall of an empire, and in its place, a new order was emerging, one where strength was measured not by power or domination, but by unity and the willingness to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The human fleet, once seen as a minor player in the galactic arena, had risen to become the defenders of the oppressed, with Emily Carter as their most prominent symbol. In the years that followed, Emily's legacy would continue to inspire. The warning that had triggered Sentinel became legendary, a reminder that humanity's strength lay not just in their weapons or technology, but in their loyalty to one another. The galaxy had learned a harsh lesson: underestimating humanity came with a price. And that price had been the downfall of the Cth Dominion. Emily, now a galactic hero, looked back on the events that had led to the collapse of an empire. What had started as a simple capture had ignited a revolution. The Cth had underestimated her, but she had become far more than they could have imagined. The galaxy would never forget the warning: "Do not touch our female alien." And they would never forget the woman who had turned that warning into a revolution.